Why drop a fortune on next-gen games when classics still put them to shame? With sky-high prices for steaming piles of disappointment, it's time to revisit the classics that remind us stunning visuals don't demand a next-gen price tag. We're looking at 15 old games that still look incredible, even today. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this. How can a game that feels more like a movie than a game still leave such a lasting impression nearly a decade later? Simple, it's a visual masterpiece. Released in 2015, The Order 1886 pushed the boundaries of what a game could look like, crafting a Victorian-era steampunk world so detailed that every frame feels like a work of art. The level of detail is remarkable. Distressed leather, smoky rooms, and textures so sharp you can almost touch them, all elevated by a cinematic presentation. With its letterbox aspect ratio and subtle film grain, it has the polish of a high-budget film, pulling you deeper into its immersive world. Sure, the gameplay doesn't reinvent the wheel, but the game's shorter length actually works in its favor. The Order 1886 doesn't overstay its welcome. It leaves you wanting more, not because it's incomplete, but because it's so masterfully executed. It's a visual benchmark that even modern games still struggle to match. When Ryse Son of Rome launched with the Xbox One in 2013, it didn't just set the bar for visuals, it obliterated it. This cinematic hack and slash brought ancient Rome to life with jaw-dropping detail. You can really tell Crytek poured their heart into every little detail. Every environment is a carefully crafted work of art. Palaces gleam with Roman opulence, while Britannia's wild forests feel untamed and dangerous. The combat, brutal, visceral, and a little repetitive. But when every slash and shield bash looks this cinematic, it's hard to complain. And don't even get me started on the glorious slow-mo. Nearly a decade later, this game remains a visual showcase designed to show off the Xbox One's power, and it absolutely delivered. If there's one thing this game proved back in 2013, it's that Guerrilla Games knew how to make your jaw drop. Killzone Shadowfall was designed as a showcase for the PS4's power. This sci-fi shooter didn't just look good, it looked like it had time traveled from the future. And more than a decade later, it still feels that way. The lighting and detail are almost obnoxiously good. And the environments don't just look stunning, they make you feel like you're part of a world teetering on the edge of collapse. Each firefight is pure eye candy, with sparks flying, debris scattering, and smooth weapon animations that make every encounter feel cinematic. The game doesn't just rely on its looks though. The level design keeps things fresh and exciting. Even years later, Killzone Shadowfall stands very tall as one of the most visually impressive shooters. Guerrilla Games was flexing hard with this one, and honestly, they had every reason to.
For all of us.
If Ridley Scott's Alien gave you nightmares, Alien Isolation will ensure you never sleep again. Released in 2014, this survival horror masterpiece traps you aboard Sevastopol Station, a retro-futuristic hellscape where flickering lights and ominous hums are the least of your problems. The visuals don't just impress, they suffocate. Every corridor is drenched in eerie shadows. Every flickering CRT monitor feels like a relic from a world that should have stayed forgotten. And then there's the Xenomorph. Its fluid animations and unpredictable behavior make every encounter a masterclass in sheer terror. The lighting is the real star here, casting long shadows that constantly have you questioning if something is lurking just out of sight. Spoiler, something usually is. Even nearly a decade later, Alien Isolation remains one of the most atmospheric horror games ever made. If you want tension, it doesn't get better or scarier than this. Superpowers are always cool, but infamous Second Son made them look spectacular. Released in 2014, this PS4 exclusive pushed the boundaries of next-gen visuals and created a vibrant playground that still holds up today. The real standout are the powers themselves. Every ability just bursts with color and energy. Watching your character zip through Seattle at ungodly speeds while leaving glowing trails in your wake is as satisfying now as it was on release. Seattle is more than just a backdrop. It's a living, breathing city. Its rain-slicked streets, dynamic weather, and iconic landmarks create an immersive playground for your superhuman escapades. Second Son might not have the depth of its predecessors in some ways, but in terms of pure visuals, it's still a showstopper that easily holds up today. A City in the Clouds sounds dreamy, until you step into Colombia and realize it's as twisted as it is beautiful. Released in 2013, Bioshock Infinite remains one of the most visually striking games ever made. Colombia feels like a place pulled straight from a dream that might turn into a nightmare at any moment. The game does an amazing job of making you feel like you're really there. Vendors chatter, citizens go about their day, and every shop and street is packed with detail. Almost like the city doesn't know it's one bad day away from collapsing. And then there are the sky rails. Who knew zipping through the air at breakneck speed could be this fun? Even now, it's hard to find anything quite like it. What I found most impressive about this game is the art style. The way it blends idyllic Americana with an eerie, dystopian undercurrent that makes you question if the charm is just a little too perfect. It's not every day a game about World War I ends up being one of the most visually stunning shooters ever made. But Battlefield 1 managed to do just that. Released in 2016, it took a setting often overlooked by gaming and turned it into an absolute masterpiece. The level of detail here is mind-blowing, whether you're charging across a sun-drenched desert or wading through the mud of a rainy battlefield. Everything looks and feels authentic. The visuals are stunning, but they're not just for show. They pull you into the chaos. Explosions send debris flying. The environment reacts to every grenade, and weather effects like storms and fog add a layer of unpredictability to the combat. Oh, and let's not forget the destruction. Watching a building crumble mid-firefight is just as satisfying today as it was when the game first launched. Even the sound design works hand in hand with the visuals to create an experience that feels visceral. Battlefield 1 is a lesson in how to make war feel gritty and cinematic without pulling any punches.
Every day.
When Dying Light launched in 2015, it combined parkour and zombies in a way that felt fresh and terrifying. The dynamic day-night cycle keeps the tension high. Scavenge by day, run for your life by night. Simple, but most definitely not easy. The parkour system is still one of the smoothest in gaming. Every rooftop leap and narrow escape feels satisfying, keeping you just one step ahead of the chaos. It's no surprise this mechanic has influenced so many games since. Honestly, it holds up incredibly well, with detailed cityscapes and sunsets that make you want to stop and admire. The mix of lighting, weather effects, and environmental detail creates a world that's both haunting and immersive. With its revolutionary first-person melee action and visuals that still impress, Dying Light remains one of the most thrilling zombie games ever made. When Far Cry 4 launched in 2014, it was an instant visual benchmark. 10 years later, Kyrat still stuns with its lush jungles, snowy peaks, and golden valleys that feel straight off a postcard. The wildlife isn't just for show. Tigers, rhinos, and those deranged eagles keep every encounter unpredictable. Combined with dynamic weather and lighting, Kyrat feels alive, whether you're sneaking into an outpost or running for your life from an angry yak. Pagan Min, the flamboyantly terrifying villain, steals the show with his unpredictable charm and psychopathic tendencies. The story leans heavily on his charisma, even if the overall plot doesn't break new ground. What makes this one so stunning even years later isn't just the chaotic gameplay, but the epic world that feels alive and dangerous. It's a reminder that sometimes, the best part of an open world game is just getting lost in it, assuming you can survive the wildlife.
That's you. That's me.
There are games that look good for their time. And then there's Batman Arkham Knight, which looks so good it feels like it cheated the system. Released in 2015, it brought Gotham City to life as a living, breathing nightmare, and it still puts many modern games to shame. The attention to detail is what makes it shine. Rain-slicked streets reflect the glow of neon lights, while Gotham's shadowy alleys feel as ominous as ever. And then there's Batman's cape, billowing with dramatic flair as you glide between rooftops. Oddly enough, watching it move feels deeply satisfying, like it's alive and perfectly in tune with the Dark Knight's every step. The cinematic quality extends to combat and movement. Every punch and takedown flows like a choreographed scene from a blockbuster, and the Batmobile, love it or hate it, adds its own flair with explosive chases and destructible environments that feel visceral and engaging. Bold visuals, fluid movement, and a style so clean it still looks fantastic even today. Mirror's Edge still holds up thanks to a timeless minimalist art style. The dystopian city's stark whites, bold reds, and splashes of color feel more like a modern art gallery than a video game. The visuals aren't just there to look pretty, they serve a purpose. Those bold colors guide you through the game's parkour-heavy gameplay. Mirror's Edge nails the feeling of scaling rooftops, wall running, and vaulting obstacles, with sharp lighting and crisp edges making every move feel dynamic. The camera's fluid motion adds a cinematic touch to every leap and roll. While the combat wasn't perfect, critics praised its innovative design. But let's be honest, this isn't about shooting. You play Mirror's Edge to feel like a parkour pro in a city that looks like it was designed by Apple. Nearly 15 years later, it's proof that bold art direction can keep a game stunningly fresh. Assassin's Creed Unity might not have had the smoothest launch, but let's be honest, it's still one of the most beautiful games Ubisoft has ever made. Set during the French Revolution, it brings Paris to life in a way that remains impressive nearly a decade later. What makes Unity shine is its incredible attention to detail. Every street, building, and alley feels meticulously crafted. The lighting deserves special mention, with sun rays cutting through the haze or bouncing off stone walls to create a world that feels remarkably real. It's not just a game that shows you history, it puts you right in the middle of it. When Final Fantasy XV arrived in 2016, it felt like Square Enix was showing off. And honestly, they had every right to. The game looks like a fantasy painting brought to life. But let's talk about what really steals the show. The landscapes. The lighting, reflections, and even the weather effects feel incredibly real. Yet they never lose that signature Final Fantasy magic. Driving the regalia across sun-drenched highways or camping under star-filled skies makes the world feel vast, peaceful, and epic. And then there's the combat. Every swing of a sword and flash of a spell is a visual treat, with effects that light up the battlefield. The game's animations, whether you're warping through enemies or dodging their attacks, are so smooth it's hard to believe this game is pushing 8 years old.
Your leave, and go in the grace of the gods.
Some games are good, and some are so beautiful they make you question if it's real life or just Nathan Drake hanging off a cliff again. Naughty Dog doesn't miss when it comes to visuals, and Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is no exception. Released in 2016, it wasn't just a farewell to Nathan Drake's adventures. It was a masterclass in visual storytelling that still holds up today. This globe-trotting journey follows Nathan Drake as he hunts for lost treasure and grapples with his past, taking players through meticulously crafted locations. The character animations are top-notch, with lifelike expressions and subtle details that make every interaction feel real. But it's not just about the visuals. Uncharted 4 seamlessly blends its cinematic style with thrilling gameplay, making every moment feel smooth and immersive. The game's ability to balance stunning visuals with responsive mechanics is a testament to Naughty Dog's expertise. Even now, this game could be re-released without a single update, and it would still feel fresh. Uncharted 4 is more than a game. It's a timeless adventure we'll be talking about for even more years to come.
Looks like we found the part.
When Red Dead Redemption 2 dropped in 2018, it was as if Rockstar decided to flex on the entire gaming industry. The level of detail in this game is absurd. Mud sticks to your boots, snow crunches underfoot, and the sunsets? They're practically begging to be framed and hung on your wall. The world feels alive in a way few games achieve. Towns bustle with activity, wildlife behaves unpredictably, and NPCs follow routines that make them feel more human than most game protagonists. Even Arthur Morgan's horse has a personality, and yes, you'll get attached. The story is equally impressive. Arthur's journey is emotional, nuanced, and often heart-wrenching. But the real star is the world itself. Every corner of Red Dead 2 feels like it was crafted with love and obsession. Today, Red Dead 2 remains as a standard-bearer for open-world design. It's proof that a game can look stunning, feel immersive, and break your heart all at once. Few titles can pull that off.